To talk a little bit about the independent nature of where I've come from, I've found it difficult, basically, despite the many years of dedication and knowledge and skill that I've built up, to, I guess, become involved in and be supported by the Australian film industry. It just seems like by the nature of the type of films that I want to make and the type of work that I've done, that has always fallen outside the parameters of what the Australian industry at the time deemed acceptable to make. And therefore, as a consequence, if I wanted to make the kind of films that I wanted to make, they were going to be independent productions. I like the independent spirit, I like the renegade spirit of making films. There's a lot of raw energy and spontaneity and unorthodox methods of creating cinematic art that you don't often find when something is, how shall I say, confined by the restraints of government funding and social requirements for the kind of films that should be made and distributed from Australia to give people an idea of the type of films we make here or the type of culture we're trying to represent. I've long been at loggerheads with a lot of the attitudes about the type of culture that we want to portray to the rest of the world, and our history, which, although clothed in a lot of tradition, is a bit outdated now. We're a modern society, we're a growing society, and we also have a lot of aspects to Australian culture that really need to be explored and don't get explored generally in Australian cinema culture. Razoreaters was a great example of a film that needed to be made. It needed to provide a voice for the angry, dissident youth out there that aren't happy with the Australian status quo, that have got something to say, but have no means or forum whereby they can express themselves. And often that comes about as very antisocial behaviour. Razoreaters was also a fantastic comment and commentary on the state of how the media affects cultural life and can influence various situations, sometimes to a very negative degree. It's a very clever film. It's a very political film in its own right and a very social film. And as we started making Razoreaters, we discovered the level to which the powers that be and the authorities try to avoid films like this being made, or at least discourage them from being made, because they do have a lot of harsh things to say about Australia, and that it isn't all ridgy-dig and true blue. And we found that as I started producing the film and we started making the film, we started to notice quite a distinct level of opposition and negative attitude towards what we were doing, which was very surprising at the time. I'll talk a little bit about that. The first level of, I guess the first level of opposition that I found with the film on a general basis was that with an independent film, you go out there with the renegade spirit, you want to make a film. And we found that by trying to do things the right way, by the book, letting people know, all that kind of thing, we found that's when we opened up the Pandora's box, and that's when we started getting headaches and hassles and people saying, no, you can't do it, you have to do this, you have to do that. When we just went out there and just made the film on our own without interference, it wasn't a problem. But as soon as we tried to do the right thing, that's when we just started to discover a lot of obstruction.